Boom. It's a beautiful Friday morning, and because of that, I figured, you know what? Let's see how the internet gods feel about the live stream today, as we want to take a look at Bitcoin. And you guys have been asking us also to take a look at Litecoin and Ethereum. I know that some of these top tokens represent, I guess, the altcoins in general. So I guess we're going to also go over our sentiments about the altcoin season and the Bitcoin dominance ratio that has been taking place. So with that in mind, let's just boom. Okay, here we go. I've got Bitcoin open on the 15-minute, and although I know it's always a shot in the dark as to whether the internet is actually going to work or not, I still stay resilient and do my best to try to make it work regardless of what's happening. Okay, so with that in mind, what I want to do is go over a few things really quickly here in Bitcoin. On the 5-minute chart, we see this little tiny bear flag right here, and a nice little flag pull, followed by the flag right into the outer edge of the bear claws 200 simple moving average. It looks like we're probably going to jump up to retest the 314 simple moving average around 12,000, 12,200, as there is a lot of support and resistance there. As we go out through the time frames on Bitcoin, again, it does become a little more noticeable. Again, if it is the fourth wave, which is this rather awkward, meandering, sideways feeling that we're getting currently. Even we had a nice inverted head and shoulders that even broke to the upside just temporarily past the neckline, and then broke down right as we hit the top resistance here around 13,000, almost a perfectly even number right at the top of some of these wicks here. So it looks like we're likely going to be coming down to test the $10,000 area, and then again we have 8,800 and 7,700 on our target list as well. And the further we get into this wave, again, the more it does start to feel like a wave 4. It does become more reminiscent of that meandering sideways feeling. So again, as we scroll out through the time frames, we get a little bit better of a view of where we are in the hold. Well, I've got a few very small holdings in what I consider to what I believe to be undervalued tokens, regardless. But even those are took a big batter. But they're a speculative play to begin with. So now that we're moving sideways here, again, the conjecture is this a fourth wave? So we could actually see a count where this is, you could actually see this as a third, all the way up to the top as the third, and a meandering fourth. Again, we've got a lot of support here at around 7,900 down to 7,700. So this is where I suspect that we could fall to quite quickly, is this first bar. Again, after that, who knows? There is a lot of contention in the markets as charts. Again, if we scroll out, if we want to take a look at that and what that looks like, we can actually just scroll out to the weekly here. I do still have it open nice. It's this nice bright orange line. See, in the recent past of Bitcoin, we had this nice, beautiful retest of this healthy market growth right on the 21 moving average every time throughout the week. Whereas now, we haven't touched it again since $4,000, and it's currently sitting around 6,800. So a retest of the 21 weekly moving average would actually be quite nice to see. And if you look at the Eagle's Nest up top here, you can see both of the moving average and convergence and divergence have crossed above this. So for those of you that don't know the Eagle's Nest all the well, this is a free indicator that we do give away. You can find them by following us on tradingview.com and then going over to the scripts. I want to give a shout out to all the people that helped create these scripts as well. So by going to our profile, following us here, we've got the Eagle Nest. So basically what the Eagle Nest does is it shows, this is a velocity driven table too. So every time you cross over one of these lines, the velocity actually starts to increase. So if we make it to this middle line here, the velocity will increase again, and then the bottom line increases downwards even further. So depending on where the Eagle Nest is showing us, the velocity of the downward pressure actually increases. So again, if we go through the daily time frame here, we've just started to break below the 21 moving average on the daily chart. Again, this is important to, I think, do this kind of, what do you call it, accordion-like folding in and out of the different time frames that we have. I think that's important. You guys are asking what tokens do we think are undervalued. That information all goes out to the private bear den through the newsletters that we write. We go through a great deal of effort to write a well thought out thesis every month, and then varying those theses, which is incredibly difficult to actually do, to bring, I guess as best as we can say, a Socratic-like method to understanding what I think. You have to insert emotions into a logical pattern, which is very difficult to do. For instance, well, I won't get too far into that, but you can sign up for our private bear den. Again, it's nothing we do here is financial advice, strictly for information, educational purposes only. We're actually building out with one of our members a bunch of new content where we're going to do like learning about crypto education spot as well, and then all those will be drip fed to everyone that joins. So we just actually got the website fixed up yesterday. I'm not sure what happened, but we had lost like 25 pages. Even some of the pages that we lost are just gone now. I have to go through and find another way to fix them. But if you go through the Academy here, we've actually been building out this part of the website, and we'll continue to do so, this is free for everyone. So if you want to learn more about Elliott Wave or the Fibonacci's, the Bollinger Bands, you can click here. We've created a video as well. Anyways, to jump back in the charts here, you can see that we're about to break below the daily on this moving average. Again, on the bear claw here on the daily has the support around 8,600, and the bottom of the the bottom of the cloud at 71, and the top of the cloud at 83. This is looking more and more likely. And on the daily here, again, if we open up the Eagle's Nest, we might be crossing over this velocity point here at the center. Again, that's important to note too, because once the velocity starts to increase to the downside, it does drop quite quickly usually. Although on the daily pattern here, it's obviously not as fast. It's more noticeable when you're in the smaller time frames that it drops like quickly in that velocity space. So on the 4-hour chart, we've just turned up on the bottom. So again, this is the secondary likelihood of why we would return to around the $12,100 area, which is where we have the 21 moving average for the 4-hour chart up here as well. I like when the bear claw and the 21 moving average do this. I've actually enjoyed having the 21 moving average on here. It's become a constant with the volume profile being quite large. Okay. So for the next part of the episode, we're going to take a look at Litecoin and Ethereum. Again, what I want to go over here is the altcoin season dead? So for everyone, I've been going over this topic in Litecoin. I've said the exact same thing multiple times. I don't think it's good to hold these things unless they're in very small amount in terms of speculation, and there's a reason for it. The reason being is because the history of Litecoin has actually stayed in between this very, very solid channel of around 20,000 Satoshis and around 6,000 to 5,000 Satoshis as well. So now that we see Litecoin actually starting to come down, it's lost all of the gains versus Bitcoin that it had made almost since the beginning of 2019. I don't care. This is taking into the account that I don't care what US dollar price action is at, only Bitcoin. So we've actually started to dip here, and on the weekly, we're actually just about to break outside of the cloud. So if we break below the cloud, Litecoin is looking quite weak here. Although my contention for Litecoin is likely that the big players know that this space has been around for a long enough time, and also see this independent channel that's been created since 2013. The fact that it's never broken out of here, and it's actually stayed very consistent, is a relative momentum in between Litecoin and Bitcoin. And one of the reasons why I think this is so highly fascinating and extremely important is to understand that because this is a new market that is developing and has a new space for us to learn and grow together, that there are lots of other traders who are entering the space and looking at the same confluence of events. And they're likely, if they're smart, they're going to be charting against Bitcoin, because if you want to trade in these markets, it's better just to acquire more Bitcoin without ever actually looking at the US dollar price, because that can be A, extremely confusing, and B, end up having you losing out while you think you're ahead. So again, with Litecoin here, it looks very possible that we could go down to the 4,000, 5,000 Satoshi mark before we see a rebound. But again, once we see a rebound or a turnaround in Bitcoin, I think Litecoin could again produce to the 20,000 Satoshi mark again. So that would be a huge move for Litecoin. And I think the big boy players know that if they just go straight into Bitcoin, depress the rest of the assets versus Bitcoin, scare the markets, get these depressed assets at a much better price, and then you see a massive run back up. Because again, Litecoin has years of history of this happening over and over and over again, where you have market fluctuations that shove us down to the single digits, 1,000 Satoshi mark, back up to the 20,000 Satoshi mark. And we've seen it multiple times now. So we can go on that as well. I'm going to only look at Litecoin and Ethereum, although I did take a trade in Matic as well. For those of you that are interested in some of these other tokens, again, our last month's thesis I think was incredible. It's been nonstop functional, which to itself only proves continuously that we actually wrote a Socratic thesis, which in my mind is hugely valuable in this market, and very few people are actually producing that level of content. So thank you again for being supportive. Just the newsletter alone, we have all these different aspects of the Bear Den that we're building out. We give away free PDFs and charts to everyone now too. And like I said, if you go to arcanebear.com, we are starting to grow out just the educational side of things, which is free for everyone to use. So keep your eyes on that. And lastly, I will look at Ethereum as Annie has just showed up. Likes and views and shit, you know, God. And then give us a thumbs up, and if you like the content, and share the videos. Yeah, anyways, the point of this is, and now we're back into Ethereum here. Ethereum's actually come down to the top of the first wave here and been consolidating into this area. Let's not draw upwards trend line. Let's draw from the top of this here. We'll take the magnet off. There we go. We'll draw this trend line again here, right to this area. Right along the 2,300,000 Satoshi area is our previous wave. Now, there is, if Bitcoin keeps moving up, we could come down to the 700,000 Satoshi mark and test the bottom of this previous wave. Again, if you look here, we're basically back in March 2016 of Ethereum versus Bitcoin. And one of the reasons why I think this is so fundamentally important is because if you remove the dollar price, you're starting to see a whole new ecosystem evolve. And that is something that I think is beautiful. So I'll leave it at that. Again, Ethereum is well below the cloud and on the bottom, just breaking down on the bottom of the bear claw. It is touching areas where it's had previous support once other before, and other than the other highs. So we could see a spike up to the mid of the bear claw, which would be a 40% gain. But again, with all the fear that Bitcoin's been creating in the alternative space about the altcoins being dead, which a lot of them will likely be wiped off the table, mostly because they're useless garbage, we actually do see a type of bullish divergence here on the on your RSI. We have a higher RSI and a lower price action too. So keeping an eye on the rest of the space, especially if Bitcoin starts to consolidate, I think we could see a lot of momentum coming in. Again, we saw this with everything from our thesis from One, Seller, Matic, Fetch, even IOTEX this morning jumped up 10%. For those of you that asked, I definitely seen a bunch of you ask about Algorand. Algorand was actually one of the tokens we had in our equity level thesis that we were working on before. Before Algorand actually went public, we had been communicating with some other private equity investors about how they could get their hands on Algorand as well. So we've actually been watching Algorand all the way since back before June started, before they went public with their token. Again, that was all for private information of equity investors. Those are people that have are not just paying $20 a month. We were actually looking at offering an investment letter for that thesis, and it was around $2,000 per person to with our equity writers, because it requires deep dives from lawyers and all this other fun stuff. But so we just left that off the table. Now that it's gone into the public, we're likely going to see a dive down here further. Although Algorand is a great product, they've got backing from Union Square Ventures, some of the biggest players in the game. What we're seeing right now is their early sell-off. Remember, an equity level investor was able to buy in Algorand way before anybody got a chance to, and you're left here holding the bag potentially from everything that they've been selling to essentially restart to get the company products and development. So it's a really interesting space to keep an eye on. Again, I'm not going to look at Algorand until we see a lot probably further downtrend. I think it. I mean, look at this downtrend since the beginning. Although it has been consolidating, and it does show us a trend line here, which I would be interested to see when it breaks out. It actually comes right above these ones here. So I mean, if you're in Algorand, well, you have to obviously. None of this is financial advice. Do your own thing. So we'll leave it off with that. Just a short video today. Thank you guys all for joining us. I hope the live stream went smoothly. I believe it did. Praise the internet gods and all the internet fairies that keep our lines plugged in. I really appreciate that. Again, if you like this content, give it a thumbs up. If you don't, you can just hit the down button. If you want to leave comments on any podcast guest you would like to see, let's do that so we can give Annie more work of more people that she can be communicating and reaching out to. I've written people like Russell Brand and Elon Musk because I know they're going to say no, just to do it and try it, because you never know. Maybe we get lucky. Maybe they do say yes. I will be back, if not today, tomorrow, with a few more crypto course videos from stop losses, the Ichimoku cloud, and then I'm going to also go over the bear claw as well as the eagle's nest. That way the information is free and easy for you guys to access in all the channels as well. We want to provide as much value and assets to the community at large. That's why we do all the things we do, from playing music to visiting orphanages to having podcasts with PhDs and doctors. We think the more ways that we can communicate value in this channel be alive. Part of me really questions the aspects of some of the people. Look, there's a part I think where I'm just going to jump off into a little bit of a rant here. There's a part that I think a lot of people don't understand, is that in business you have to learn how to be a little bit fiery, because they're all like very often going to be. That's it. I live in the middle of the jungle and I'm one with nature, but don't come and mess with my house. I'll throw you off my balcony. Stay with the Arcane Bear, signing off for the rest of the day with that note.